Look closely at a struggling healthcare practice today, and you might assume the problem is a lack of patients or a drop in quality care. The reality is much simpler and much more expensive. Practices are bleeding revenue because their administrative operations simply cannot keep up with demand. It usually starts with prior authorizations. As patient volumes grow, the number of required approvals multiplies, creating an unmanageable backlog that grinds the daily schedule to a halt. Right behind that is the issue of insurance eligibility. When staff are too busy to verify coverage before a patient walks through the door, the resulting mistakes lead directly to unavoidable and costly claim denials. And then there is the money already owed to the practice. Accounts receivable ages well past the 90-day mark, and no one on the internal staff has the time available to track it down. We see an average 14% denial rate, climbing to 51% for complex authorizations. Furthermore, practices lose 13 administrative hours weekly. Converted to dollars, this lost productivity translates to a financial deficit of $40,000 annually per employee. This systemic gridlock occurs because a single, overwhelmed internal team is being forced to juggle prior authorization tasks, patient eligibility checks, and accounts receivable follow-ups, all happening at the exact same time. The instinctive reaction for most practices is to hire more in-house staff, but adding more people to a fractured process simply increases overhead, while the revenue remains trapped behind delayed authorizations and denied claims. Consider this is a high-volume, multi-provider dermatology clinic that found itself facing these exact compounding administrative bottlenecks. The clinic handled a massive daily workload across medical dermatology, surgical procedures like Mohs, and cosmetic treatments. While their clinical offerings were expanding, their back-end operations were steadily falling behind the volume. Instead of continuing to absorb the heavy financial cost of recruiting and training new in-house hires, the practice made a strategic pivot. They moved entirely to healthcare outsourcing for their pre-revenue cycle management. They avoided the trap of using a generic shared resource pool. Instead, they onboarded a remote, fully dedicated team of 5 specialists focused exclusively on their specific workflows. This map shows how the deployment actually worked. The external 5-member team plugged directly into the practice's existing electronic health records and payer portals. There was no disruption to the clinic's daily routines and absolutely no need to purchase or install new software. By thoroughly analyzing every existing payer rule and workflow backlog before starting, this model completely bypassed the operational disruption and lengthy training delays typical of traditional hiring. Within 2 weeks, this newly aligned team was fully operational and began a systematic unblocking of the revenue cycle. First, they took over the authorization process, submitting and actively tracking prior approvals for specific dermatology procedures on a daily basis. Second, they began proactively verifying patient insurance eligibility, ensuring coverage was confirmed well before the patient ever arrived for their appointment. Third, the team executed continuous, consistent follow-ups on outstanding claims, steadily chipping away at the aging accounts receivable. Finally, they applied their specialty-specific expertise to efficiently manage and appeal claim denials, navigating the strict and often complex requirements of individual payers. Distributing these highly targeted tasks to a dedicated team solves 2 critical problems at once: consistency and expertise. Suddenly, the daily work was handled proactively, and nothing was delayed or ignored. Because the accounts receivable were now being worked daily rather than occasionally, the movement of trapped capital rapidly accelerated. The front-end operations saw an immediate benefit as well. The clinic experienced a sharp reduction in overall denials and a drastically faster turnaround time for prior authorizations. This comparison chart demonstrates the financial result of that shift. By abandoning the traditional hiring model in favor of the dedicated remote team, the practice achieved approximately a 70. Cheryl Larkin, the billing coordinator at Derm360, reported a highly noticeable positive operational impact across their accounts receivable, eligibility verification, and prior authorization workflows. With the administrative backlog cleared, the internal clinical team regained the bandwidth they needed to focus purely on higher-value tasks and patient care. If a practice is currently struggling with delayed authorizations, eligibility issues, or aging accounts receivable, the question is not whether they need support. The real question is how much daily revenue is being lost simply by waiting to fix the system. When the revenue cycle runs efficiently, the entire practice performs better. Evaluate your workflows today and explore dedicated outsourcing to build a foundation that actually supports your growth.